You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast. It's myself, Mooncey, and alongside me today, the one and only, the best GM in the world, Mr. Scott Perry. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, Mo. How you doing this morning? I got a
Oh,
good workout in the
I'm
morning, just
I'm
like you
blessed.
did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
Got a little a rare sunshine today. Rare bit of
oh,
sunshine on my
oh,
walk to the
oh,
gym.
oh, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Walking home, it was
Nothing.
gray skies again, but walking there, it was sunny, so
He
I was in a good mood.
said,
Scott, I've started doing this thing. I saw this trend on TikTok. Every day, I try and say three things to complete strangers to make their day. You know, like I'll see someone, I'll be like, bro, I
all
love your
right.
shoes. Or I'll see
Okay.
someone, I'm like, man, that hat is so cool.
That's awesome.
But today, right, I'm walking to the gym and there's a guy cleaning his car. And, I just nod my head, carry on walking. And when I'm walking home from the gym, he's like finishing up and the car is
Okay.
pristine. It's like
Okay.
reflecting it. He's done a great job. I stopped. I said, brother, great job. The car looks amazing. I think he got so scared because I'm like wearing my hoodie. I'm like quite a big guy. He got so scared, he got in the car and locked the door. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Oh,
whoa,
wow.
whoa, whoa, whoa. He thought I was trying to rob the car. I said, bro,
Mo,
what are you doing?
don't allow that to take away from that positive energy that you're spreading like that.
I'm
That
trying, man.
goes, hey, look, that goes along with those Monday motivations that I get,
Yes,
that I
sir.
send
They're
out
my
online
favorite. I
every
got the
Monday.
notifications on.
Exactly.
I get them every week. I get them every week. But
Hey.
we got the GM in the house today, so I figured before we talk about the NBA Cup, let's talk about
Mhm.
some of the trades because trade season has begun, and BJ's not
Yes.
here, and I don't want to hear BJ saying, "Mo, I like to keep things on the court." No, we're going to talk about the trades that are off the court right now. So, Scott, the big
Yes.
news over the weekend was the Golden State Warriors acquiring Dennis Schroeder, a player that a lot of teams were looking at picking up from Brooklyn, who Brooklyn over surpassing, I guess, the expectations for what people had for them this season.
Yeah.
They've put together
Hmm.
a few very good wins this year so far.
They
Um,
sure have.
but but Schroeder's over there in Golden State. And
Hmm.
in exchange for DeAnthony Melton, who is out with an ACL, I believe, for the season, the Warriors receive a second round pick via Miami, and the Brooklyn Nets receive Reese Beekman and three second round picks in the deal. Just off the bat, what was your initial reaction to this trade?
I really like this for Golden State. Unfortunately, DeAnthony Melton was injured. So anytime you can trade an injured player who was to factor heavily into your rotation to go get a player like a Dennis Schroeder, highly competitive guy. We've seen him excel both in the NBA and on the world stage with his team in Germany. I think he's very additive to this group. He can play downhill. He's improved a lot as a three-point shooter. This will give them the ability to play a little faster at times when they desire to. And I like it. And he adds some toughness to the group and that depth in the backcourt. So I like the pickup for Golden State. And it's obviously, to me, they are really trying to figure out all they can to make one big push to get back to the finals.
Absolutely. There was also the news that they were also looking at picking up Cam Johnson from Brooklyn. However, they would
Mhm.
have had to include Kuminga in that deal. Would you have pulled the trigger on that deal, Schroeder and Cam Johnson, for basically Kuminga in 3 seconds and Melton, who's injured?
I like what they're doing with Jonathan Kuminga. I'm a Jonathan Kuminga fan. He- so to me, and we talked about this last week, Mo, you got to see what you have in this young man. Can he be that second scorer to Steph Curry? And that's what you got to find out over the next 20 games. There will be a number of deals. If for some reason you get close to the deadline and you don't think he is the guy, there will be a lot of teams that are still interested in him, and you can add to your roster at that time. So I thought it was wise on their part, just coming away with Dennis Schroeder, moving forward with the rest of the roster, and let's go Warriors. Let's see what what this trade brings.
Yeah, Schroeder's putting up 18 and a half points a game. He's shooting a career high 6.5 threes a game on a career high 39%. So he's balling right now. The Warriors are looking at starting him alongside Stephen Curry in that backcourt, which is interesting because I thought he'd be used as a boost off their
Mhm.
bench, but it is kind of I guess the Warriors weren't getting what they expected to get from Pajemski this season, and that's why they've had to make this move. Do you agree?
I would agree with that. And look, Dennis Schroeder's a veteran player too. Played a long time in the NBA with a lot of success. He's played a number of playoff games as well. So they're going to be a little small in the backcourt, maybe, but offensively, they're going to be tough to deal with because Dennis Schroeder comes at you nonstop for 48 minutes. We know who Steph Curry is and what he does. He's a relentless player as well on that offensive end. So now what'll be interesting to watch is just how they perform defensively,
Yeah.
especially against bigger backcourts, how Golden State goes about handling that dynamic with the two smaller guards starting in the backcourt.
It also gives them a five off the bench of Pajemski, Buddy Hield, GP, Carl Anderson, and Looney, which I think is a very solid, like in terms of going 10 deep in your roster. And that's not even to mention Moses Moody and Trace Jackson Davis. I really like this 12-man rotation they've got. They've got 12 guys that can play.
You know, Mo, I love depth. You've heard me say that multiple times on this podcast. The deeper teams, to me, are more equipped to make deep runs, if you will, in the playoffs because there are going to be injuries that occur during the regular season. Next man up. Well, they have quality next men up. Like you said, been going 12 deep, a lot of experience with those 12 players, a lot of different ways that you can play, depending upon the night, you have different guys that you can go to for matchups. I love the second unit and the energy that you can bring. Now, Podziemski goes back there with the Gary Payton, Buddy Hield, Trace Jackson Davis, all these guys coming off the bench, Kayvon Looney. And look, Draymond has been coming off the bench as well, too,
Yep.
and scoring more off the bench. So this team love their depth. They can play you in the multiple ways. And the beauty of it is, depending upon how the game is going, Steve Kerr can close with different combinations. He doesn't always have to close with the same starting five. You know he's going to close with Steph Curry. That's for sure. That's a given. But everybody else, you know, he could close with Draymond Green, even though he's bringing him off the bench.
Well, this is what I like about Draymond's. If Draymond's coming off the bench, they're starting Kuminga. I know Jackson Davis was out for a little bit, or he wasn't playing. But if
Right.
Draymond is coming off the bench, we know Steph Curry is listed as a point guard, but Draymond Green is really the point guard of the Warriors. You know, what he does on offense, directing the offense, and Steph's coming off the ball through all those screens. Having Dennis Schroeder there to alleviate some of the ball handling pressure on Stephen Curry in those minutes where Draymond's off the bench. Because what we've seen with the Warriors historically is Draymond and Steph excel when they're on the court together.
Yes.
Because not just defensively, but also offensively, what Draymond can do. But now having a true point guard, should I say, alongside Steph, and him being able to play off the ball more, I think will help Steph, especially now he's got this tendonitis in his knees that he's going to have to deal with for the rest of this season. He's not having to bring the ball up every time and direct the offense. So I'm excited to see how this fits. The Warriors started 12-3. They're now 14-11. So they've got to really turn this thing around because we're past that 25 game mark now.
Yes.
They've got to really start turning things around. So I'm interested to see how it goes. And I think a lot of teams out there are going to wish that they had made a move for Schroeder beforehand. I think the Lakers, especially, are a team, even though they had Schroeder a few years ago, they're a team that could have really done with adding Dennis Schroeder to their roster because they need that true point guard presence more than most teams out there in the league.
Dennis Schroeder is a player that could have helped a number of playoff teams advance. And Golden State was the one that pulled the trigger. And I look forward to this move really paying dividends for them moving forward.
What's hilarious about the whole thing is like they needed that like extra scoring burst and whatnot. And I was watching the Warriors. I said this in the Discord. If you guys listening want to join the Discord, it's linked below. But I was like, do you know who would be great for this Warriors team? Jordan Poole. Do you know what I mean? He can give you that scoring burst off the bench, like let Steph get some rest. I'm like,
Well, that's what Buddy Hield should be doing. And he started the season off, as we know, very well, like wildfire. I know he has cooled off a little bit now. So,
but I
don't
feel like that
expect
happens
it.
everywhere he goes.
Do
Like
you-
that
well,
happened in Philly, happened in Indiana. It happens like he starts really good, the fans love him, and then it just kind of slows down a little bit when teams start to figure it out, and then he
I
becomes the
think
opposite of a fan favorite.
Yeah, I think the difference though this time, the environment of Golden State, the understanding of a guy like Steve Kerr, who played in the league, who's coached a long time in the league, players like Buddy who've been streaky throughout their careers and understand how to ride the ebbs and flows that come with those type of players. So I expect Buddy to bounce back and be more productive at various stretches during the season and be an important part for this team and probably help them secure some big wins along the way to securing the playoff seed at the end of the season.
Well, another team that needs to make some moves is another Western Conference team, and that's the New Orleans Pelicans, who sit dead last, 5-22 right now. The Pelicans are open to trading anyone on their roster except for 3 players. Scott, can you guess? Because I got my friends to do this while we were playing 2K yesterday. They guessed
Okay.
2 of the 3 correctly, but can you guess all 3 players that the Pelicans will listen to offers on? Like, they'll listen to offers except for these 3 guys they want to keep.
I'm assuming they want to keep Trey Murphy.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that would be one. I'm assuming they're going to want to, because he's on the rookie scale and he can shoot the basketball, Jordan Hawkins.
He's not on the list.
He's not on the
For the
list.
right price, a move could be made.
A move can be made for Jordan Hawkins. Herb Jones
Yep.
is another one who's, he's the rock there. He's on a solid contract. He can defend, and he's going to be able to fit in and around whatever they do moving forward in terms of roster changes. So
He's
you
a
don't wanna
first team all defense
rip him.
caliber player.
Yes. So I'm a fan of Herb Jones. So I got 2 of them as well, like your friend did too.
Yep. And the third one.
Not so sure now that to me everybody else probably would be in play, and I know that may surprise people that I didn't mention Zion. We know the contract situation with Brandon Ingram, so I couldn't put him on that list, and those are your top 2 players.
The third player on the list is also on a rookie scale contract. It's the rookie Yves Missy, the center,
He's missing.
who's
Okay.
been fantastic so far from what I've seen.
Okay.
But here's what's insane is if we went back to the year that Zion was drafted, and I said to you, what year was it? What year was Zion drafted? It was
2019.
man.
I
And
remember
if
that
I
all
said to
too.
you 5 years from now, they're gonna be try shipping him out, you wouldn't have. No one would have believed it. No one would have believed that was possible, because when you get a number 1 draft pick, you signing him up to the max rookie extension, then the super max. No one would have believed that at all. But they're willing to hear offers on him. Brandon Ingram as well because of his contract. But the interesting one is they traded for DeJounte Murray this summer. The trade has worked out great for the Hawks with Dyson
Yes.
Daniels and Larry Nance. They're
Dyson
doing great
Daniels,
things over there.
Dyson Daniels is playing terrific basketball in Atlanta.
But now the Pelicans are also open to moving DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum and basically anyone else on the roster.
It's a mess there in New Orleans right now. I can't put it any more succinctly. Things are not going well. Now, in terms of Zion, look, how we got here with Zion largely is because of the injuries and injury history he's had since coming to the league. And Mo, you've heard me echo this phrase many a times. The best ability is availability. And unfortunately for Zion and the Pelicans, he just has not been available enough. So he hasn't really been able to establish himself with that team in terms of what they really can look like and putting pieces around him on a long-term basis. Because just as if he plays a stretch of 20, 30 games and it looks like, oh, they're turning the corner, he gets injured. So that's the tough thing there. And so that's why I understand that now he could be available via trade. Will teams kick the tires on that? Absolutely, because the guy's a tremendous talent. Look, when he was coming out of Duke in 19, everybody, whoever would have had the number 1 pick, would have drafted Zion Williamson that year. He was that transcendent and transformational type of talent. But again, the injuries have really derailed what he could do as a professional. And you got to be concerned about that because he's a big body player who relies so much on explosion off the floor. And anytime you have a guy that big who lives off the floor as high as he does, and that is the strength of his game, you're going to run into some issues in terms of potential injuries. He puts himself probably more at risk than a lot of other players on the court. So interesting times there in New Orleans. I see a lot of change coming to that organization, quite frankly, because look, for them to be the worst team in the Western Conference, they're only better record-wise right now than the Washington Wizards.
The Jazz are trying to
Trying
lose.
to lose.
No, the Jazz, Did you remember the game where Colin Sexton had the chance to win the game and the coach
Yes.
calls the timeout while he's halfway through a layup?
To
Like
left. Yeah.
they are actively trying to throw games, yet somehow the Pelicans are worse than them.
Yeah.
Make it make
Well,
sense.
yeah, it
But
doesn't.
I wanted to ask you
And
this.
even with the injuries, again, we talk about the depth and all like that. This is a team that I'm sure the people in New Orleans didn't expect
Oh,
this bad of a start, with or without Zion, to be honest with you. So
I wanted to ask you this though. I'm a big fan of Zion. That's my guy. I've done a lot of work with him with Jordan Brand and so on and so forth. So these are just rumors that I've heard. This is not reporting on what I know, but this is what
okay,
some people out there have rumored. I want to preface this
okay,
with that. Some
okay.
people have said that Zion, I know you can't speak about your time in New York, but some people have said that Zion really badly wanted to play for the Knicks coming out of the draft. He thought he was going to go to New Orleans, then to New York, and then New Orleans got the first pick. But ever since he's got to New Orleans, he's been wanting to get out of New Orleans. And some people have theorized that the reason why he's not staying in shape and whatnot is because he is just trying anything to get out of New Orleans. Have you, in your 24, 25 years as an executive around the NBA, seen situations where players intentionally don't live up to their potential because they're unhappy with their situation?
Boy, Mo, that is a little bit of a loaded question, to be honest with you. It
Hey.
really, exactly.
I ain't trying to get you in trouble, Scott. I ain't trying to get
Yeah,
you
I
in
know,
trouble.
no. But what I would say, because what that question suggests is that a guy would intentionally not do his best and put his own career at risk because he didn't want to be somewhere.
There was
Now,
I'll
now,
tell you.
now, 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 but let me finish the point.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I don't see that with Zion. Do I think Zion was disappointed? Look, when the lottery came out, the whole world saw that his reaction when New Orleans won it, his head dropped. So, obviously there a lot was assumption that whether he wanted to go to New York or somewhere else. Okay, you'd have to ask him. He talked favorably about New York. The whole public had heard that. Now, so that would may have been a moment of temporary disappointment for him. But as the days and months moved forward, this guy's a competitor. He's a basketball player. He's the number one pick. And if for nothing else, he was going to be driven by trying to be a great NBA player, to play, he's on the rookie scale contract, trying to play for a max deal, with so many of these young top picks want to do. So I find it hard to believe that he would potentially sabotage himself enough that he's gonna be overweight and not put it all into it. I don't buy that when it comes to Zion Williamson. Now, has a player done that in the history of the game? I can't speak to one, Mo, but there's always an anomaly somewhere that can be found. But that would be that really be going to the core of the person and who that is. And I never had an opportunity to really meet Zion and get to know him. But from all the intel that I had done and had done about him and heard about him, this guy's a highly competitive guy. And so I just don't see him doing that.
In the
I would
Premier
dispel that
League,
rumor.
in,
Hmm.
in the Premier League, there was a player called William Gallas.
Hmm.
And he played for Chelsea and he wanted to leave
Okay.
Chelsea. He
Okay.
threatened to score own goals if they didn't sell him to another team.
Wow. Now, again, like I said, there's always an anomaly to any situation. Like I said, I just can't think of one right off the top of my head that I've seen sabotage his own performance. Now, have I seen guys behind the scenes that want to get out that may not, stop speaking to the coaches or stop speaking to the front office, won't do interviews and act very surly behind the scenes so that they can get traded and get out of there? That's something different versus a guy coming out and saying, I'm not going to perform well. So again, I don't know what happened behind the scenes in New Orleans. Now maybe, what's going on there in terms of his interactions with everybody that works in the building. I haven't heard anything egregious there, But I have seen situations of that. Well, look, we've all seen with guys that in this era of player empowerment, person wants to leave and go somewhere else. He makes it known. He goes to the front office.
Mm,
Hey, look, I want to be traded. I want to, I don't want to play here anymore. So we've seen those instances before, but I don't, but I don't think in this case with a guy like Zion Williamson that he would ever try to sabotage his own performance. I think he
I
loves
agree.
competing in basketball too much.
I agree. I agree. But speaking of competing and basketball, did you tune into the NBA Cups games this weekend? The semifinals were in play.
I I did. I did get a chance. I got a chance to watch the majority of the
Can I have a rant?
Milwaukee Atlanta game, and then I saw
Can I go
good
on a rant
stretches.
here,
Okay, so
Scott?
you said, yeah, I want to hear the rant. Let me hear
Okay.
your rant.
So
Let me
on
hear your rant,
Saturday,
Mo.
two of my best friends came over to my house. This is my
Okay,
friend's birthday. We're celebrating, whatnot. We're chilling, and they are casual NBA fans. They're
okay,
casual NBA fans. Like when I'm watching games, they'll watch
okay,
games with me, and
okay,
they keep up to date with the highlights and the trades and what's happening. But they're not like dedicated fans like me, right?
okay.
So it gets to the evening. I say, "Yo, do you guys want to watch the NBA?" And they said, "Who's
Hmm.
playing?" And I told them the teams that were playing: the Hawks and the Bucks, and the Thunder and the Rockets.
Hmm.
They were like,
Okay,
"Ah, not really." I said, "Yeah, but it's the NBA Cup semifinals."
okay,
And I'm gonna tell you what one of my friends said to me. He said,
okay.
"Bro, I don't care." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "It's not a real competition." I said, "What do you mean it's not a real competition? They got a trophy. They're in Vegas." So he goes, "No,
Hmm.
everyone knows this is not a real competition. I'm just gonna start watching when the playoffs are here." Now
Wow.
that's a small sample size, but I think it kind
Hmm.
of shows where the casual fan base, because we talk about basketball every day. We're like, and if
Yes.
you're listening to this podcast every day, you're a dedicated basketball fan. But this is where casual fans are at right now. The
Hmm.
perception of this tournament amongst casual fans is not held in any regard whatsoever. So you have that. Okay, that's the first
Hmm.
thing. So I said, all right, cool. We'll do what we're doing, and then I'm gonna watch the fourth quarter though. I'm gonna tune in for the fourth
Hmm.
quarter. So I tune in for the
Hmm.
fourth quarter. And my other friend is there. He goes, "Why do they keep stopping?" Like there was a ref video review that went on for like 5 minutes. He's like, "Bro,
Hmm.
like, what are we doing here? We're watching a referee looking at a board for 5 straight minutes."
Right.
And I'm just looking at it from the perspective of if you're not someone who's invested in any of these teams and don't really care and whatnot, why are you tuning in? And then add to that, the crowd in Vegas was absolutely awful. Giannis had an insane defensive play, and the crowd basically didn't react to it. Because
Right.
it's impossible to, the thing about the selling the tickets is it's impossible for fans to fly from Milwaukee to Vegas on like 3 days' notice, which I
No,
get.
exactly.
But
Yeah, that's the challenge.
you've
That's one of
hosted
the
this in
challenges.
Vegas, and so
Hmm.
the crowd in Vegas is not there cheering for the teams; they're cheering for the bets that they've placed, and they probably bet
Hmm.
on Clint Capella scoring X amount of points again, a double double, and Giannis has blocked him, so they don't care about the block; they're just mad that their bet is now ruined.
Right.
So there's that, and then it also for me as like a hardcore basketball fan, it didn't feel special. Like the build up for the game, the pre-game talk, like they're talking about the Knicks and they're talking about this and that, and I'm like,
Hmm.
let's build this up as a legit semi-final and
Right.
excitement for and it just didn't feel like a semi-final of a cup competition. It just felt like a regular season game on a different color court. How did you feel watching it as a viewer?
That is the challenge with this tournament. Go back in time a little bit when it was being discussed as a concept. That was going to be the challenge in terms of getting the buy-in from the public at large, getting them to really feel like this is an intense competition, that this trophy, this early season tournament mattered, and get people excited about it. And from the same from the players. Now, I will say, and I said this last year, I believe it was a success in terms of the buy-in from the players. I thought that the players themselves were competing very hard for the early part of the season like that, and that it mattered. Obviously, there's a little bit of a financial reward in it for winning. Now, for your players like Giannis that make $50 million a year, maybe it's not a big financial incentive for them, but I read what Doc Rivers was saying. He'd never been hugged so much in an early season game by so many players on the team for the guys who don't play that much. You know,
Hmm.
your two-way guys and the end of the bench guys who on minimum contracts, they stand to make a lot of money now that they're going to the
Oh yeah.
finals in this competition. So there's been buy-in there for the players. But you made a great point though, Mo. And the biggest challenge now that I see for moving forward, because I actually think the games that are the quarterfinal games that are played on the home floors of the teams, like the game that was held in Milwaukee, the game in New York with Atlanta, because you had those home crowds there, the energy and the noise really felt like a real tournament play. Fast forward, you go to Vegas on 2 or 3 day window. That's very hard for your fan base to pick up and travel that
Hmm.
quickly. Purchase tickets, hotels. It's very expensive to do that. So now you go to a neutral site. To your point, you're just playing in front of basically a crowd of people more than likely who are just visiting Las Vegas there for other entertainment, with the
They were giving out
casinos
the
and all like
like
that.
it was
Basketball.
like 30
Yeah,
bucks to get in.
yeah. And so you're just there kind of, watching professional basketball. So there's not that intense engagement in the arena because there is no real home crowd to be lifting up the home team and antagonizing the visiting team. So that's definitely missing, and you can sense that on the court. And it's because interesting that they black out the crowd
Yeah. Yeah.
on television, so you can barely see the people in the stands. So you don't really see a lot of fan reaction to your point. So that makes it a little more difficult in terms of coming through on the television in that venue. So I don't know if you can move the tournament now that you just start rotating around. That you're always playing in home arenas of these teams, because that way I think in terms of television, the excitement may be a little bit greater because
Like
it's
that block
tough.
from Giannis. Imagine if that happened in Milwaukee.
Oh,
The arena's going crazy,
awesome!
right?
It's
Like,
going crazy, and then what that does to the run of the game and the team.
hmm.
Oh, it's
Hmm.
no
Hmm.
question about it. But like you said, there, okay, great block, but like you said, somebody may be wagering something else on the game, or it was
Yeah.
just like, okay, the person that's watching the game really doesn't have a dog in the fight, if you will, because their favorite team is not playing, but they're
And it's
just
also
there
none
to
of their
watch
favorite players.
basketball.
Like, there's no
Yes.
LeBron, no Steph, no KD, so on and so forth. Like, and I get it's exciting young players and whatnot, but for a casual NBA fan, I don't think they
Right.
resonate with them. So that game was actually pretty good though. The Bucks and the Hawks. It was pretty
Oh,
exciting.
I thought, yeah, I really thought so. I thought it was a well
But
played game.
I had another friend. I want to shout out to my friend Elliot who got engaged this weekend. Congratulations to him and his fiance. But he went away. He went to Iceland to propose, and then he downloaded the Rockets Thunder game to watch on the flight home.
Oh,
And we were
okay.
talking about this yesterday, and I said, "Bro, I wish you just text me beforehand because I could have told you to save your time because that was not like I get it, but it wasn't a great advert for the NBA, that game in particular, because both teams really struggled to score. The fact that the Thunder cracked 111 points in that game was wild. Like, I mean, you can chalk it down to the great defense, but neither team could really get offense
Yes.
going.
Yeah.
But it's like Shea
But again,
finished with 32 points, right? He made 8 field goals. He scored 32
yeah.
points, but he made eight
Points,
field goals,
yes.
and he went
Big
14 of 15 from the
15 at the
line.
line.
So
Yes,
so
yes,
basically half your points are free throws. And this is
yes.
like one of the young stars who's in the MVP conversation. And I'm not knocking Shea for doing that and doing what he's
No.
doing. But at some point, if this tournament is like a showcase for the league, this is the product we're putting out as the top two seeds in the West in a semifinal. I don't know. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Mo, I hear you. It wasn't the offensive
It wasn't
juggernaut
Showtime.
show.
It wasn't
Yeah, yeah,
Showtime.
it's
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't
yeah.
2016 Warriors. It's
However, what I will say, and we talk a lot about this when it comes to playoff basketball, there are nights that you're not going to shoot well, whether it's just you're off or the opposing team's defense is doing that good of a job on you, making you take difficult shots for the majority of the night. The ball's not just going to fall in at the normal rate that it does. And you've got to rely on your defensive effort. And kudos to OKC. They play hard, boy. So does the Houston Rockets, taking
Yep.
nothing away from them. But OKC, to me, is showing you that they can win in a variety of ways, but they're not going to sacrifice on that defensive end. They're going to give you a defensive effort each and every night. And I like what I'm seeing from this team early in the year. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, to me, he did what great players do, an MVP candidate does. When it's not falling for him on the floor, okay, there's other ways that you can score. And he was
We
super
talked about this
aggressive
with
in the
Anthony Edwards
basket.
last week.
Absolutely. And so, okay, my jump shot's not falling as well tonight. Let me attack the rim. He's 6'6". He's got good size. He uses left, right hand equally well around the basket. He knows how to draw contact and fouls, and that's what he did because he knew his team was still going to need him to get those 30 points. And he just manufactured half of those at the free throw line. Again, that's the mark of a great player.
The one seed from both conference, the one seed in the cup, not the one seed in the standings. The one
Yes,
seed
right.
in both conferences, the Bucks and the Thunder, will meet in the finals on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Who have you got becoming the NBA Cup champions? Will Darvin Ham and Torian Prince remain undefeated in the NBA Cup?
That's something. Darvin Ham has yet to lose a cup game.
It's crazy,
And
right?
Torian
It's
Prince.
crazy.
That's right.
It might be his competition.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is going to be a very good basketball game, highly competitive. You wonder, from an OKC standpoint, who's going to match up with Giannis? Is that going to be Lou Dort, who's undersized, but he's strong, can get up underneath him? Well, I'm sure he will be on him at different times. Or is it Isaiah Hartenstein? But he's probably going to have to be matched up with Brook Lopez.
Yep.
And Brook Lopez is going to try to pull him away from the basket. So it's going to be an interesting chess match there with the matchup. And then on the other side, with the size at the backcourt, who's going to match up with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander?
I know it ain't gonna be day.
Yeah, exactly. From the Milwaukee side. So with all that being said, and where the teams are at right now, and I told you I really like the ascension of Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee, when it's all said and done, is going to be one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. But I'm going to favor the OKC Thunder to win this game on Tuesday. I just think they can win in a variety of ways. I like their depth. I like their bench better. The stars on both sides are terrific. You know, they're 2 of the top 4 or 5 players in this league. I expect them both to show up very well. But I like, there's something about the chemistry, the camaraderie that you see with this OKC team right now, and the energy that they play with.
And they've just got so many guys that can just guard.
God, yes, and they're bought into that. You know, that's really a part of who they are. Whereas Milwaukee's going to have to scheme you a little better defensively. Not that OKC doesn't have very good schemes, but to your point, they have a lot of individual guys who just really take on the task of defending night in and night out, take a lot of pride in that, stopping their man. And so I'm going to go with the OKC Thunder to hoist the second NBA Cup.
I expect the Thunder to win, but what I will say is Giannis is a big game player. Like that block he had on Capella was huge, and then winning that game. And when you think back to what he did in the finals when they played against Phoenix in the final, and he finished with that 50 piece. So, you know, he's coming from Greece where they had cup competitions. And, you know, I'm excited to see what he does. I just wish it would be played in front of a crowd that actually cares about what they're watching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If this game was in Milwaukee or OKC, either one, just think about the energy in the building for that. And so that, again, I don't know if that is something that's in the works down the line.
Well, I think the plan is to take this overseas, have the Emirates NBA Cup in Dubai. in Saudi Arabia, in wherever they might take it. But I think that I don't
That's a
I
lot
think
of
that
yeah. That's a lot of
that's a lot
that's a
of
lot of
travel.
travel. That's a
Number
lot of
one,
travel for instance.
but do
Yes,
you not think this? And I was thinking about this the other day. Why not just make the in-season tournament the first month of the season? Do you know what I mean? Like
okay.
just do all the cup games, get them all out of the way at the start of the year. Because like
It's
right
a
now,
thought.
you're asking fans to go to Vegas. No one's got money to spend on the 16th of December when they're doing their family Christmas shopping and they've got this, and that to pay.
Again, the problem, and again, you don't live here, Mo, but you hear me talk about American football. American football is the dominant
Yeah.
linear TV sport at this time of the year, especially when the NBA first starts. The NFL is really ramping up. So that could be very difficult to just kick the year off on it. That's one from a commercial standpoint, but number two, just from a practical standpoint, training camps are so limited now in the NBA. You have very little time to practice to start out right away in a heavy competition like this, where teams are, quite frankly, really not prepared for
Hmm.
that. I think would be difficult. So that's why you wanted a few weeks to go by before you started that competition. It gives teams a little more time, to play games, guys to figure each other out that are playing together, a few more practice sessions, things of that nature, so that the product itself you're hoping is going to look better and teams are now in a position to execute on both ends of the floor a little bit better.
How excited would you say you are for the NBA Cup final between 1 and 10?
Mo, how excited again? It's never going to take the place of the
I'm not
NBA
excited. I'm gonna be
championship.
honest with
Exactly,
you.
exactly,
I'm
yeah.
not moved. It's a
So
normal
exactly,
regular
yeah,
season
yeah,
game for
right,
me.
yeah. And so, am I? To me, it's like a 5-star regular season matchup.
Yeah,
Two of the better teams in the league, Milwaukee, OKC, are getting ready to play. And again, whoever wins or loses, it's not a okay. If you win the cup, doesn't mean you're going to win the NBA title. If you lose the cup, doesn't mean you're not good enough and you're out of it by any stretch of the imagination. It's just,
Mhm.
I think it's an opportunity in a one game knockout situation in a pressurized environment with a little money on the line,
Mhm.
right there, to see how guys perform or your team performs at this early part of the year. But for me, I would say in terms of the excitement, I'd give it a six,
Yeah, I mean, I'm as excited for
six,
this
seven,
as I would
six,
be if
seven.
they were just playing anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like if they were
exactly,
playing
exactly.
anyway, I would be excited for that. And it being the NBA Cup final is not moving the needle for me.
Yeah,
That's the
no,
sad
no,
part
no,
about
no.
this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Again, I think it's a great matchup, but again, I will say this: if it was at OKC or at Milwaukee, the excitement level might be a little higher for me because
Hmm.
now I'm anticipating that real crowd environment of the home team in that arena, just the energy that comes with those type of games and the buildup that comes with that. With this being on a neutral court right now, and neither fan base is going to be there in full force. You could argue that maybe OKC will get a few more fans there now since they, won on Saturday, gave fans a little extra time to buy tickets. Same with Milwaukee fans. We will see. But again, it's nothing like one of those two teams hosting the event in their building and that energy coming through on the television. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's not there. That's not there.
Yeah. But what I am excited for is more episodes of the Hoop Genius podcast. So subscribe to the show. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your
Who do you have,
podcasts from.
Mo? You
I
didn't
got
pick your
OKC.
winner.
I got
You got
like
OKC.
I think
Okay.
Giannis will get you like 40 plus, but I
Okay.
think just based on like the bench of OKC, they've just got a deeper squad. They can play a more
Yes.
versatile style, whereas the Bucks, you know how they're going to play. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
I
The
agree.
Bucks had a real problem with fouling as well against the Hawks. I'm interested to see how that plays out in the final as well. But yeah, I've got the Thunder for this one. I've got the Thunder for
Yes.
this one. So,
Yeah.
but Giannis is Giannis. So like,
Oh yeah, no,
you know what I
Giannis
mean? If
is
he gives you
terrific.
50 instead of 40 now,
I
it
can
might
tell
win the game.
the beauty of Giannis, I don't care if it's game 1, game 41, game 81, playoff game, whatever, he is not going to cheat you in terms of effort and how he
Exactly.
shows up, competes, man. And man, I love that about the guy, man. That's why he's one of my favorite players in the league because you know that he's going to show up and he's going to give you
If you had to give me your
elite
top five
effort.
players, if you had to give me your top five players, not on talent or ability, but top five players who compete the hardest in the NBA, who is your top five right now
Well,
on
he's
on a
he's at the
nightly basis?
yeah, no, he's at the head of the class. And look, even though he doesn't look like he's moving all that fast, and we talk about him all the time, you got to say Nikola Jokic as well
Yep.
too.
Yep.
The
He's
guy,
there.
the guy doesn't. You don't put up those kind of numbers and not show up with a competitive spirit and trying to play your best each and every night. And look, I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has put himself in that mix too, as a guy that there's not many nights I've turned on the television and I feel like, oh, he's not trying to really go get it. I think he's really ascended in that way.
I put.
I don't know. I'm trying to think
Do you
of,
know? Do you know
I
who I
would have
put in
said
this? Do you know who I put in this? I
who else you
put
put in
Jason
there?
Tatum in this. Even though he does it in his own quiet, understated way,
Yeah,
he'll play
yeah.
at least 75 games every single season,
hmm
if not more. You know what I mean? Unless he's out with an injury, he's going to
Yep.
play as many games as he can possibly play. Like, I'll never see him
hmm
doing a load
I'm gonna
management
tell
when
you,
he's not injured.
Anthony Edwards didn't cheat you either.
Pardon?
He might play Anthony Edwards. And
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards is a guy that showed. I mean, he came out a year or two ago and said, "Look, we're paid to play 82 games, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm gonna do."
Yep.
And I look for those guys that are gonna try to give you something a little bit defensively too, not just on the offensive end. And I feel that Anthony Edwards is one of those players that does that as well.
Well, that's another episode. Regardless of which players are playing on the court, we will be here doing this podcast. So, Scott, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if BJ's around tomorrow. He's got a few things going on this week, so we'll see
Oh yeah.
if he makes his return. It might be me and Scott back
Absolutely.
again. But
Okay.
either way, we'll be back
Look at-
tomorrow with more from the Hoop
Okay.
Jesus podcast. And until next time, get buckets.